Hello, everybody. Thank you once again for dialing into our well-informed parent prep for a super summer. All lines will be muted for the remainder of the presentation. However, we will have a question and answer portion at the end of the presentation where we encourage you to type your questions in for the presenter. School is out for the summer. Summer break can be a very enjoyable time for the whole family, but that doesn't mean that it comes stress-free. Deciding what to do, managing childcare, and even starting back to school prep can add pressure to our summer fun. Today, we're going to be talking about different ways to make the most out of the summer and how to stave off not only the summer heat, but also those summer stressors. Today, we're joined by Dr. Suzanne Robeson. She is a licensed psychologist, licensed professional counselor, and certified co-occurring disorder professional practicing mainly in Pennsylvania. She has owned her private practice for about 12 years and has been a mental health provider for about 25 years, contracting with Cigna and other employee assistance programs to provide specialized services within organizations across the country. She has worked primarily with children and adolescents throughout her career, but also with families and couples. So, Dr. Robeson, I'll go ahead and I'll tee it off over to you.
Thank you, Dakota, and welcome to everybody. I'm going to apologize in advance for technical difficulties that I'm certain I will have, but we prepared as much as possible to not have those. So let's hope they're minimal. But welcome to this presentation, Parent Prep for a Super Summer. I'm really excited to be providing it. I'm all the way out in Philadelphia, so I know nothing. Well, I went to Chicago once and I really liked it. And a lot of times when I go places, I say, Philly's better. But I thought Chicago was pretty darn close to out here. So I'm excited to get to know some people from Chicago today. And Dakota mentioned you can ask me questions at the end if you want, but also you are more than welcome to just put things up in the chat or to open up your mic or chime in, do whatever you need to do to make this the best for yourself. So it's such an interesting topic. I told Dakota earlier when I first was asked to do it, I never did this one before. And I thought, how am I going to talk about that for an hour? And then when I started looking at the content, I thought, oh gosh, I could do this for a week. So I hope people are interested in some of this information because as a parent, I have a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old girl. And I'm flashing back looking at this going, oh my gosh, I remember when they were 3 and 5 and even now 12 and 13. And it'll be like this next summer and the summer after where there's a lot to that. So I was naive enough to think, there's not a lot to say on this topic, but there is a lot. So again, feel free to chime in and add or contribute or ask anytime you want. But for the beginning, maybe take a moment and just shut your eyes if you're comfortable doing that. I think everybody, I don't know where everybody is, but do whatever you need to do to visualize and think about yourself as a child, whatever age you want. And think about summer. And then anything that comes to mind, a word, a phrase, an idea, an image, put it in the chat box or open up your mic. What comes up for people when you think about yourself as a child and the summer? I'll give people a moment to visualize. Oh, family vacations. Wow. That's a good one. Anything with an exclamation point is either horrible, wonderful, or both. So, yeah, that's a pretty common answer, right? Family vacations. Anybody who has anything else, you can put that up there. But I think that for a lot of people, maybe most, you probably have some happy memories about childhood summers. That tends to be a time when kids are free and fun is to be had. And that's not to say that they don't have stress. Kids have stress, just like we have stress. But definitely there's some, you have school off. I mean, what could be better than that? So I think for whatever people's circumstances are, everybody's different. And certainly things aren't always roses for people, even if they're kids. But we have lots of happy memories a lot of the time from childhood. We think about being with friends, family vacations, freedom, not having to go to school, sleeping in, things like that. And so we're going to talk today. Let's see if I can get I knew once I toggled, my controls wouldn't want to work again. But whenever it comes up, there's an agenda. So We're going to talk today about identifying strategies for summer planning for our kids, but also for ourselves, and talk about options for managing summer childcare challenges. We don't want to advance again, but we're going to do it. I promise. There it is. I guess I have to use the arrows. I didn't learn that the first time I had trouble. Discuss options for managing summer childcare challenges. So again, I'm all the way out in Philly. I don't have the resources that you guys might know of, so feel free to chime in and share things with each other. But the ideas around childcare challenges and how to find resources and things, we're going to talk about that. Explore ideas for summer fun and enrichment. Get tips for easing the back to school transition. So as I thought about this seminar and looked it over, that's when I was like, oh, duh, there's a lot to this. So I'm going to go fast, but try to focus on the things that I think people will probably want to hear, and don't be shy about chiming in. So those are the things on the agenda. We always save room also to talk about the AP, because by the grace of the AP and your company wanting to use it, that's why I'm here today. So I'll share that in the final couple of minutes of our seminar, and whatever else comes up. But that's what we're looking at focusing on. So, still didn't learn my lesson about the arrows. Nope, still doesn't want to toggle. All right. It doesn't like when I go back and forth, but I like to check the chat box sometimes. So I know, Dakota, you have offered to monitor that for me, but so I'll try not to toggle back and forth, because I think that's what's slowing me up. But we, so whenever we get to the next slide, the question says, when did summer fun become summer stress? So I think there it is. That's where we're at as parents a lot of the time. As I looked over the seminar and I thought, oh, that's right. When did summer fun become summer stress? And some people have lots of fun things planned this summer, I'm sure, even as a parent. But look at those happy kids running around with nothing to think about. And we have lots and lots of things to think about as parents, right? We have to shift into a totally different world. My kids, I don't know about you guys for when your last day of school is, but my kids, the last week is this week. And probably by the time May comes around, I'm like, I'm so sick of school. School has to be over. I cannot wait till they're out of school, because I'm sick of taking them, and I'm sick of planning the field trips, and I'm sick of all that goes into the school stress. Then fast forward like 4 days from now, and I'll be like, oh my God, they have to go back to school. So I think just the transition of, okay, let's do a whole new thing for a couple of months, and then let's go back to what we used to do. That in itself, I think, can be very, very stressful for us as parents, to have to transition a couple of months in between to a totally different thing. But there's also all kinds of other things, right? We have to plan, we have to schedule, we have to figure out how to entertain our kids. We have to also figure out how to keep them healthy, how to feed them, how to give them experiences, how to make sure they have a lot of everything that kids are supposed to have. So it can be very, very stressful for lots and lots of reasons. We could fill an hour on you guys giving me more examples of why, but we're going to talk about how to manage that. We're not going to be able to take away stress. We just want to manage it. So we remember this. Look how cute that is. SPF. That is our acronym. We love acronyms in the psychology world. I don't know about you guys in your line of work, but for us, we use a ton of acronyms. So SPF is basically what we want to keep in mind. Start scheduling. So put up a thumbs up or a face or a Y or something in the chat box if you already started scheduling summer plans for your kids. And Dakota can help me out and tell me if that seems to be half the people, one person who started scheduling already.
Well, I know my wife and I already have.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing, right? Do you feel better that you started scheduling or still stressed?
I think we like to just take it day by day. I think for the most part we like our plan, and that's alleviated some of that summer stress. But when you have, like, my boys are little, those plans change almost on the daily depending on how nap goes.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, especially when they're little, but I think with kids in the mix, things often have to change a lot. So, anybody put anything in the chat box or are they all sleeping?
Nothing in the chat box yet, but I guess that I'm gonna take that as the folks aren't even thinking about it yet.
That's right. They might not be thinking about it yet. So that's okay. Don't panic if you're not thinking about it. But starting to schedule is good. My mom said to me probably 3 weeks ago now, "Where's your summer schedule?" Usually you give that, I put a spreadsheet together and I give copies to everybody involved with my kids for any level of anything. I guess probably way earlier than this. And I think when they were younger, I started scheduling even earlier. But I can't start scheduling too much, but I started a little bit, but I haven't given it out yet because I'm waiting on other people. And so sometimes we start scheduling early, sometimes it's later. Sometimes one summer is different than another. Some of us are more planners, some of us aren't. Some of us have more complex summers to schedule. And so that's why we might start scheduling earlier. As Dakota pointed out, maybe because our kids are younger, we have to start scheduling more. But scheduling, that's a big one. We also want a practical plan. And so another thing pretty big in my world, probably in a lot of people's, is to be realistic and practical about things. So we want to think about, okay, what would we like summer to be like? And what is it probably going to be like? We want to be realistic about the things that we set out for, and then also be willing to be flexible with those things. And F does not stand for flexible. Maybe it should. But we also want to schedule free time and fun. And so people can do whatever they want this seminar. You do not have to put things in the chat box. So I'm going to make that as optional as you want it to be. But if people are thinking of having fun this summer, if you're excited about having fun, if you think you're going to be able to give yourself either of those F's, free time and or fun, you can put a thumbs up or a happy face if you want to, or just smile to yourself and be glad about that. And if not, we're going to talk about why that's important. So, SPF, schedule practical things only and include free time and fun. If we go back to these happy kids, we can look like that in an adult version if we are careful and take this seminar seriously. So it doesn't have to be all stress for us. And as parents, really all the kinds of research that I've ever read about kids and what makes them happy and what's good for them, there's lots of debates about should they be in activities and how many, and what's better for them, this, that, this schedule, this thing, that thing. Really, they just want their parents happy. Really, ultimately, what makes them the healthiest and most well adjusted is if we are not as super stressed as many of us are. And so stress is a normal thing, and it's adulting to be stressed. But if we try to do SPF a little bit, then we want to try to make sure that we have less stress. So we start scheduling as early as we can. I can't put a final schedule out because I'm waiting on a couple of people to tell me their schedules. So I got to jump on it. I started it. It's not quite finalized. But the earlier we start, the more advantage we kind of have, even if we have to change it. Because then we know earlier that we have to change it. And we set up a calendar that works for us. Some people like electronic calendars. I'm old fashioned. I just like paper. We have shared calendars. We have calendars with reminders. What's on the calendar has to work for us. If we know that Tuesdays are crazy busy, then that's not the day to add extra things in the summer. So we do what works. That's a big takeaway from this seminar as well. do what works. We want to do what works for us, what works for our families, not necessarily what the ideal is or what we did last year or what we think we should do. So we set up a schedule that works. We use a way of tracking it that works. We also want to schedule big items first. So whatever those big items are, whether it's a priority to you or it's a priority to your kids, or it's something like a vacation, something bigger than just what are we going to do Mondays and Tuesdays, we schedule those things first and then we schedule things around them. So if there's anything that people feel like they really want to do this summer, need to do this summer, or have to absolutely make time for, then you're going to schedule around that. Take work, for example. That's a pretty obvious thing, that we still have to work in the summer because we're not kids. And so we schedule around work. And the same thing for anything else that we want to put into this schedule. We want to first start there. And then we organize to include, I hate absolute words, should say it, like any variables that we can think of. So we're never going to be able to 100% control something, and we don't want to. But organize the schedule around any kind of variables that we could see. What could be a barrier or a change? I don't know what my mother-in-law's vacation is this summer yet. And so I organize things around what it might be or what it has been last year, where I need to ask her to consider that variable. And so to some of you, maybe this stuff is obvious. To some of you, maybe it's super helpful because some of us are much more schedulers than others. Some of us are planners, some of us are not. So we want to think about the basics of scheduling when we think about summer. And don't give up if you get a late start. Also, a big thing in my field is it's never too late to start. Better late than never. So if you didn't start yet and you're panicking about not starting, or somebody's saying, like my mom, why didn't you start yet? Today's the day, or tomorrow, if tomorrow's better. But just start scheduling when you can. So then the P is practical and possible. So we want to build in limits. What kind of limits do you think you might need for you, or what kind of limits do your kids have or your caretakers have? And sidestep to just say whether you're a parent or not, you might be at this seminar. I'm going to say parent interchangeably, but if you're an aunt, an uncle, a caretaker, whatever, same thing. So what do you know about these kids that their limits are? Do they get tired really, really easily? Is it hard for them to be out in the sun? Are your caretakers not able to handle too much of a 3-year-old? Then build in those limits. What is actually practical? I signed my kids up for a summer camp way back. They were like, I don't know, 4 or 5, I don't know, little things. And it was 45 minutes away. And I really wanted them to do it because it was like a pop singing camp and they were both really into singing. And maybe it was a good thing, but nobody would take them 45 minutes away. So the days that my mother-in-law or my mother had them, even though it was only 1 week, by the way, they were not happy with me for asking them to drive 45 minutes up and back in the middle of the week to take them there. So maybe wasn't the most practical plan possible. So we really want to consider all of the people that we can consider in this and what our normal schedule is and how it's going to be as far as we know in the summer. And involve your child in planning. I think that's another big one. Ask your kids what they want to do in the summer. Is there anything they want to do? Is there anything they don't want to do? How do they feel about this thing or that thing? Kids cannot have the say in everything. Kids might not be able to have a say in some things. They might not like things, and that's okay. But sometimes we can consider what they like, what they don't like, what they want to do, what they don't want to do, how they feel about things. So we want to ask and we want to consult and consider, because that empowers them and also cuts down on the resistance that they might have to things, and also mentally prepares them for things. So We involve our kids in planning to whatever extent we can. And then I love this one, say no to guilt. So if you, I'm not going to ask for thumbs up or faces because people are quiet out there, but if you feel like you give in to guilt a lot, if you feel guilty a lot for your decisions, this is also a parent thing. As parents or caretakers, we might tend to feel very guilty a lot just because it's such a hard job and it's impossible to do it perfectly. But if people say or do things that make you feel bad, or if you feel like you're not doing enough, or it's great when you go to other places and talk to other parents and they're like, we're doing this and we're doing this. And then you feel shame that you don't do what they do. We're going to say no to that. So, no guilt. We do the best we can as parents. Most of us love and care about our kids, and are doing the very best that we can in that moment for them. And so that's a really big one as far as feeling good about the summer, even if it's not the most perfect summer ever, that we're going to do the best that we can. And we're going to try to not beat up on ourselves for what isn't perfect or what isn't how we thought it should be. And so we'll make peace with our plan. This is acceptance. Ultimately, acceptance gives us peace. And so whatever the mishmash plan is that I have today, right now, it's good enough. And I will accept that it's not exactly how I want it to be or what I hoped it would be, or it might not work out the way I think it's going to be. But we're just going to roll with that and just accept that as much as possible. So practical and possible also involves going easy on ourselves and just to some degree kind of going with what is. We're scheduling, but we're flexible enough to go with what is. And so this is a good tip. Look at your child's proposed summer schedule and ask yourself, would you enjoy this if you were them? I love that question because we don't think about a child's mind a lot of times. We forget what it was like to be a child a lot of times. And so we can ask ourselves a couple of questions like this. If I was living this for 2 months, 2.5 months, would I enjoy this? But another question is, when I was their age, if I was living this, would I enjoy this? Because we forget what it's like to be 4 or 15 or whatever. And then another question is, knowing your kid or this kid, would this kid enjoy this? Because like many of us, I am unfortunate enough to have 2 completely polar opposite kids. So would the older one enjoy it? Absolutely. Would the younger one? No. I can say that with any fill in the blank activity you want to put in there. But we want to ask ourselves, okay, do I think my kids or this person, this child, would enjoy this? So there's a lot of variations of that question that we can ask. But again, if we go back to, because for dramatic effect, these happy, happy kids, that's ultimately what we want. It's not about the perfect schedule or even about happy kids, because 2 years ago, I put my kids in a swim thing, a summer swim activity. And I thought they would like it. They did not. They were not happy with that. But that's okay. I thought about them. I thought, I think they might like this. Here's the reasons why. Let's try it. And they didn't. And that's okay. But what we don't want to do is not consider, are they going to enjoy it? Would I enjoy it as a kid? So we just have to consider that. And then the F is leave room for free time and fun. So family vacations with an exclamation point was put in the chat box. That is a super fun memory for some of us. For some of us, it was stressful, but also super fun. Even if things are stressful, they can be fun. And if you take both of these F's, free time is different than fun. They are not the same. And sometimes fun is extremely stressful, busy and rushed, and tires you out. And sometimes free time is not really fun. It's more relaxing and not stimulating. And sometimes they overlap more. So those are two very different things that I think we need both of. So if we really try to plan and we really try to say, okay, let me schedule things that are practical and reasonable, but making sure that there's maybe a balance of some free time and some fun, then I think we're on a really good track for trying to consider what needs to be considered with summer. So we want to embrace the concept that lucky kids, that they get to have a couple of months off, and that as parents, we have to adult and make sure that things are as safe and structured as possible. And decide if there are going to be boundaries to free time and fun as well. That how much is too much free time or how much is too much fun. Everything can be too much. So if we say, okay, you can have some free time every week, but you can't wake up at 2 in the afternoon, get on a screen, and then go to bed at 2 in the morning on that screen. There might need to be some boundaries around free time and fun. And then also we can consider encouraging and suggesting and thinking about helping our kids enjoy these things or come to terms with and accept these things that they might not like. Like, why can't I sleep in till 2 in the afternoon? It's summer. I should be free. Now we're talking about teenagers or preteens. It's my summer. I should be free. And so we want to sort of say, like, yeah, but also when you feel good, if you got something done in a day and then you got to enjoy some downtime, that would be a lot more satisfying. So when I put my kids in the swim camp, they didn't really like the idea from the beginning. And I seeded it a little. I said, well, look, they have a snack bar. They got the high dive. There will be so and so there. Maybe you'll have a little bit of fun with it. They did not. They hated it. I did not like it either. But I seeded it in case. So make an extra effort to unplug after work and look for opportunities for spur of the moment family fun. Here's where they put all the super, super important things. I'm also accused all the time by, especially my teenagers that I run group for. They call me that teacher that says everything's important. I say everything's the most important thing. I do not say that, but I'm kind of saying that here. This is really, really important though, right? Fun and free time for the kids is great, but we will super stress ourselves out if we're just worrying about them having fun and them having free time. And then probably another pretty important thing is to model for kids how we want them to live. So we're not really modeling fun and free time if we're stressed out and busy all the time, even if they're having fun and free time. They're more looking at us, right, for what living as an adult is. So making an extra effort to unplug after work, looking for opportunities for spur of the moment family fun is a really good idea. What a great picture too. Laying in the grass barefoot. Look how happy these kids look. So that doesn't cost any money. If you can find a little patch of grass, might not be too far to go to find that grass. You can lay in the sun and the grass with your kids, and that's a nice spur of the moment family fun. But anybody that's ever said, hey, you know what? Tomorrow let's go to the shore, or let's go to an amusement park, or let's just do nothing and relax, or hey, let's build a tent and watch this movie in a tent, or anything that is just sort of a let's just make time for fun kind of moment with the family can do this. And if you've never done this, if you don't think you've ever been that person that finds spur of the moment family fun, that's a really good challenge for yourself. Try to do that, especially in the summer. So here are some of the childcare challenges. Look beyond your norms to try to overcome whatever those challenges are. Oh, here's ways to overcome those challenges. So whatever the childcare challenges are, there's another week we could spend saying like, okay, but we have this challenge and this challenge and this challenge, and it changes from this age to this age. But whatever those challenges are that we all have, we want to think of outside the box a little bit, right? What is it that we did last summer, the summer before, and the last 10 summers is okay, but maybe we could try something different. I put them in an activity. I don't know if I'll ever do that again. I put them in different kinds of camps. I try different things. That's how I look beyond my norms. But I put them in an activity. Didn't work out, but it was good because we tried something different. And so think about what's something different that either we need to do because maybe sometimes we think we're lacking in something, or it's a different life, different world this summer, and so we have to find something different. Or maybe it's just because we want to shake it up a little bit. But that can help us to meet whatever challenges there might be. And then turn to friends and family. So you don't have to put a happy face or a thumbs up, but think about, am I somebody that has a friend or a family member, or if I'm privileged enough to have both, a couple of each even, then let's make sure we use them as resources. And nobody is perfect. Some of our friends and family members might be iffy, but if they are a presence in the child's life, if they are somebody that can help take the load off us a little bit for a minute, an hour, a week, to just have somebody else there in any way, we want to try to use those resources. There's our cliche, it takes a village, right? So anybody, neighbors, friends, family, any other adults that we have that can help teaches a whole lot to kids about community and about trusting people and about having different kinds of diversity and interactions in their life. So we really want to be not keeping the burden all on ourselves and branching out a little bit for that if we can. And then mixing up camps, classes, and care is super helpful too. Not just having one thing or the same thing is really helpful for a lot of things, for keeping the boredom away, for giving our kids different experiences, for trying different things that maybe this is a little has these negative things, but then this thing is positive in those things. And so I always am a big fan of variety with kids. Consistency is important, but variety is important. So try different kinds of camps, different classes, different people that can look after them, or have a mixture of all three of those things. Maybe your kids do a class during the summer and they have a camp and they have different places they go to get looked after. And then remember, work at home employees need a care plan too. I saw that bullet and I thought, I didn't create the slides. I just figure out how I'm going to present them. But I saw that and I thought, oh, that's a flashback to COVID. So I think if any of us were parents during the beginnings of COVID, those couple of years, it was all of a sudden we're working from home when we might not have been before for some of us. And then all of a sudden your kids are home from school while you're working from home. So I think probably any of us who lived through any of that know that this is absolutely true. That just being at home does not mean that the kids are taken care of, but we need to figure out boundaries within that and timing within that and any ways we can get them out of the house within that. So we also need a plan in any kind of scenario we're in. And this one's interesting too. Save for increased costs as part of your start early strategy. And as someone who does not do really good with saving, that's something I always say I'm going to do and then don't. But I think if any of us here have paid for any kind of childcare at all, we know that that's a great suggestion. There are very, very, very expensive things that kids can do in the summer. And there are some free ways for them to occupy themselves and spend time and everything in between. So any kind of planning economically is a great idea. I think there was something I saw about like childcare, the average childcare expense for whatever the research was on this. I don't know where this information came from, but that it costs about $800 a month per child for childcare. Camps can be $75, they can be thousands of dollars. So if we plan and think about what we would like, even for next summer, even if it's not going to happen this summer, I would like my kid when they're 14 to do a sleepaway camp, or I would like for some summer for us to go to Europe. Whatever kind of thing that we want to think about, starting to save for that is a really good idea. Another thing we could spend a whole week on is, should our kids be home alone? So that typical latchkey kid idea, that was something that was perfectly okay, in the 90s, absolutely in the 70s, 80s. And now we think a little bit more about these things as society changes or we have more awareness. But there is no federal law governing age. So there is no, in the United States, you can't leave your kids home under the age of blank. It's really pretty much up to parents for the most part. Some states have certain things around this. I have no idea what Illinois has. But this stuff is really what you want to think about. It's really more about maturity. It's more about how your child feels being left home. How safe do you feel with your community, your home, the resources that you have in place? If you prepare for your child being home alone or children being home alone, then these are good ways to prepare. Start off slowly. We're going to go out for an hour, come back, see how they did. Then maybe it's 2 hours. Prep with role playing. When I first gave my kids keys, my youngest daughter was going out to the bus and she was supposed to lock the front door and go to the bus, and she had a total meltdown because she couldn't lock the door, and she tried for like 20 minutes, and then my neighbor heard her crying and came over and said, "What's the matter?" And she said, "I can't get this door locked," and then she missed the bus. So she called me after all that, and I came back home and I helped her. But here was my failure as a parent. I gave her a key, but I didn't role play with her. How do you put the key in and open it? I kind of dropped the ball on that one. So we prep with role play. This is how you open the door. Can you try it? Let's see if you can do it. What would you do in this scenario? Let's role play that out. What are some rules that you need to have? My kids stay home alone. They're 12 and 13. Sometimes they stay home alone, and the rule is you're not allowed to use a stove if nobody's home. You're not allowed to go out walking if nobody's home. There are certain things they're not allowed to do. And arrange for safety nets. So if there's an emergency, you go across the street to Patty's house, you call me, you call grandmom if you can't get me, you scream and yell if there's any danger, so you get people's attention. So you arrange for safety nets, you make sure all the phones are charged, you make sure that everybody has access to each other as much as possible, you know who they can go to, they should know their address. These are things that we want them to learn and be prepared for as much as possible. And some things to ask yourself: is your child a calm problem solver? Are they able to handle stressful situations? Or do they sort of melt down or look to others to handle stressful situations? Are they self-sufficient and able to structure their time? Are they rule followers? Do they feel comfortable or are they fearful? So there's a great handout that, I don't know if Dakota, if you send the handouts around or if you will, or if they're accessible somewhere, but we have some really good handouts. And one of them is a lot of questions that you can ask yourself or your child in preparation for whether or not to leave them home alone. There's the teenagers. So teen do's and don'ts. So for anybody who has teenagers, there's a set of different challenges. Younger kids have challenges in that, you're trying to keep them alive because they, have no idea about the world. Older kids might have different kinds of challenges, like too much freedom and independence. And so they need you to create the structure, us to create the structure, because they typically will not do that on their own. You want to set expectations early, whatever early means. Starting to talk to your kids while they're in school about, in the summer, I expect you to do this. In the summer, you're going to need to do this. For the summer, how about this? You can see that they all have phones, of course, which is true for all of us, not just teenagers. We all have our technology attached to us. This is a good thing as far as I'm concerned when it comes to staying connected. So back in my day, we could never get a hold of anybody. Now it's pretty easy. I felt a lot more comfortable leaving my kids home knowing that they have a phone and I have a phone, and there's very little trouble being able to connect to people. So check in, see how they're doing. Tell them you're going to check in. One of the rules that has always been with my kids' phone is if I call you, answer. And they're pretty good at that. So know that if you call them, they're going to answer. And if they don't, there should be consequences for that. And keep them busy. And again, with a balance of fun and free time and downtime. But structure and having tasks to do and a variety of tasks is just as important for older kids. It just looks different. So remember, the teenage brain, even the young adult brain, is not fully developed. So they are impulsive creatures. They do not do great with planning and decision making. Some of them are way better than others. But one of the also big important things to remember as parents is that kids should be acting like kids, and we can't be shocked when they act like kids, and we don't want to treat them like adults. So finding fun at home is a really big thing too. It can be really, really stressful just economically to think about the summer, just even food wise. I mean, forget about how expensive food is these days, but ever since they were little, when they're home, I'm like, now I got to have food around. I have to feed them at lunchtime. I have to make sure they're eating a lot more than when they're away at school. And especially if they don't have a lot to do, then they're looking to be snacking and things a lot. So forget about the financial burden of food when they're home, but also camp and activities and everything else we're spending money on. So we want to try to find things that they can do around the house. Also, a handout on that. There's some really great ideas on one of the handouts about ways to enjoy fun at home. I mentioned, let's have a tent, let's have movie night, let's look at the stars, let's lay in the grass. So there's always things we can find to do at home. And that's just as fun, sometimes even more fun. And then we can also sneak in a little bit of learning here and there. This looks like a super cool museum of some kind that this kid's at. So in Philly, and I'm sure in Chicago or around that area, you guys have lots and lots of fun things to do. I don't even know if you're all from Chicago, but all over the place, we have all kinds of fun things to do. And they can also be educational things. So we can take them places where they're going to learn things. We can show them things and talk to them about it and teach them things about it. We can try to say, even at the supermarket, hey, tell me how much a 20% out off. My kids are learning percentages. I was at a restaurant and I was like, okay, what's the tip? What's 20% of this? So we sneak learning into little things like that and really helping them learn real world skills. That's another thing that reminded me of COVID, where my kids learned how to cook when COVID happened. Later, they learned how to take the clothes out of the dryer when COVID happened, and we all needed to change our roles a little bit. So we can do those kinds of things in the summer too. Camp, for any of you who send your kids to camp, I think in our area anyway, lots and lots of people use camps. And camps, again, can be, I put my kids in like a 4-day camp that was like 3 hours or 4 hours, a different one in different summers, or a couple in a summer. They can be like that, or they can be sleepaway camps that are super intense, or anything in between. So camps, there's a lot of great research around how camps help kids. They build independence and confidence. They help them with social skills. They meet new kids. They have a lot more diversity. A lot of times, some of these camps, just different kinds of kids and different kinds of experience diversity, offers opportunity for learning and growth, healthy activity-based experiences. So this too, you want to think about your kids. My kids love swimming. I thought they would really like the pool. Their grandmom and both their grandmoms had pools when they were growing up. And so I never really took them to the public pool. I was privileged enough to have a private pool for them to swim in. But there's no snack bar at my mom's pool. There's no big slide. There's not other kids there unless they bring them there. So you want to think also about, what do your kids enjoy? This backfired on me. They love swimming, they love snack bars, they love slides, but did not like the swimming vibe. But we think about, what kind of camp would our kid like, or what maybe do they need help with that this camp could give them? Do they need help with social skills? Camp can help that in general, but maybe there's even a camp sort of built around them. Do they need more independence? Camp in general can help with that, but sleepaway camp maybe helps more, or camps that really put a focus on that. So, of course, we want to think about all kinds of things, like how expensive is it? How far is it? How does it fit into our schedule? But really just thinking about, what could they get out of it is pretty important. And there are a bunch of questions we can ask ourselves about that too. What if they get homesick? Are they ready for camp? How are we going to pay for camp? And how do we pick one? And one of the handouts that we have also has some really good resources, links and stuff for how to pick a camp. That to me was always very overwhelming, especially just when you see the price. I'm bringing up money a lot today, but it's just, a lot of times I think, is this kind of thing worth it? And for my kids in particular, I put them in all kinds of things, and I was sort of like, I don't love this. A lot of it just depends on the kids that are there or whatever, but it can be pretty overwhelming, I think, because there's so many camps and they start wanting money really early and they fill up really early. And there's so many things like that that you have to consider about camp, that I like that we have that sheet for kind of helping navigate that stuff. And then we're also going to talk about going back to school. So we're not even out of school, probably. We're not over here anyway. But how do we get them out of school and then go back to school? Because already in 5 days, I'm going to be like, you guys need to go back to school. So gradually is best. Let them have their summer. Don't try not to let them worry about school. Let them be off. But then at whatever point, we're going to start reminding them that school exists, and that we're going to have to get back to real life at some point, and that the schedule is going to change, and that we're going to be transitioning, and address any anxiety. My older kid is going to high school this year. They're starting them early. And then my elementary kid is going to middle school. So there's a lot more anxiety with them, probably, or will be, because they're changing schools. If your kids are changing schools, districts, if they're, going up, or something different is happening, then you definitely want to be talking about how they're feeling about that. But some kids just have anxiety in general about going back, or really difficult times with transitions. So we want, and for ourselves too, we want to address our own anxiety as well about it. And don't put off school prep. So, again, with the SPF, make sure that you're scheduling and practical about it, and making sure that you're thinking about how to pay for school supplies and where you're going to get them from and when you're going to start looking and what else you need to do. For me, the biggest thing is always, which I fail at all the time, but it's always getting up early to go to school. So August 1st, I'm always like, school's going to start soon, and you guys are going to have to start getting up early, and we're going to start practicing, and we're going to, start setting the alarms. And then inevitably I don't do good at that, but that's a really good thing to do. And then watch for emails and things from school throughout the summer, because there's all kinds of announcements. Sometimes those are on social media too. but in the mail or in the email that schools will be notifying you about and telling you things that you might not even expect, like changes in administration or whatever. So jot down reminders for next year of things that you might, and some of you might be overwhelmed by thinking about next year when we're just dealing with this year. But there's things to keep on your radar all year round about, okay, well, I should think about that for summer. Or somebody says something and you think, oh, that'd be good for us to do one summer or next summer. And maybe having a wish list of some kind is like that. Or if your kid says, hey, I'd like to, Susie goes to the park down the street every Saturday in the summer. Why don't we do that? Or goes to Busch Gardens. Then those are things that you don't have to rush and do right now or figure out right now, especially if you've already got things established. But tuck it in your pocket and think about it for next year or another year. And ask people, what they do. So, I did good with time. So people are welcome to ask questions, put things in the chat box, open up your mic, just stop me and say question. But the last thing I wanted to run through is the benefits of your EAP, because as I mentioned, the reason I'm here today is because you're fortunate enough to have extra kinds of benefits. And every single time I do things like this, people have no idea that they have an EAP, or they think it's some kind of therapy. And it is kind of sort of. You get 1 to 6 free visits, you or anyone in your household, with a therapist for any event that happens in your life through the EAP. So you can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and reach somebody to talk to, process things, ask for help, or you can actually have face-to-face sessions with a therapist and get however couple of sessions are free. And then you can always use your health insurance after that if you find someone who takes your health insurance. So that's a nice perk. A lot of people know about the EAP, but also they help with childcare, elder care, pet care. Really, ultimately, I think about the EAP as if there's anything in my life that I need and I don't quite know where to go for it, or I need some help navigating something, financial services, legal services, call the EAP or look on the intranet if you have that for the EAP and just ask, hey, could you help with this? There was a employee once that told me that the EAP in Philly helped her find a nursing home in Florida for her mother when her mother fell. So things you wouldn't normally think about. It's meant to be an extra safety net and set of resources for employees, because you have healthcare and you have dental and all the things you have as an employee, but you have all these extra things to help with life stressors. So always think about using the EAP for anything extra that you might need. So that's everything that we have to talk about today. Anybody that has anything else, you are welcome. Thank you to whoever, I think Dakota put that in there. Feel free to type any questions or open up your mic. But also there is a satisfaction survey that we ask that you try to do to let us know, was this helpful? Did you want more of something else? Do you want some other kind of topic? And so that link and QR code thingy is, it actually moved for me, is right there. So I'll just pop that in. Oh, okay, I won't pop that in the chat box. It still hates me. So I will try to pop that in the chat box. And people can maybe click on it, but we also ask you to do that. Anything else that anybody has? Now's your chance.
Yeah, Doc. I just want to say, thank you for all the information. I know that it's super helpful for me to hear, because summers are, school starting for for my oldest, so we're entering a new transition period. It'll be starting in the fall, so we'll have a first summer break next summer. So I know that just hearing all this now is giving me some good foundation for the future, and I'm sure that everybody else who views this will or should feel the same way about being more prepared as we enter that summer season. I also just want to say that we will be getting the handouts out to you guys. The survey link is in the chat, but we'll go ahead and send it over to you in our follow-up from the presentation today as well. Doesn't look like there's any questions in the chat there, Doc, but I just want to let everybody know that if you have any questions or need to reach out about anything, definitely please reach out to the wellness team, wellness@transitchicago.com. Once again, we will be sending out all the handouts Doc is going through right now on our screen. But Doc, any other closing remarks you want to make for everybody before we sign off today?
Nope. Thank you, everybody. I hope it was helpful. Again, the EAP is always there for you. Those handouts have some really good things. And thank you for giving me your time and attention. I appreciate it. And thank you, Dakota, and everybody behind the scenes.
Of course. Thanks for being here with us today. And thank you for the awesome conversation topic today. And with that, we'll just go ahead and I want to wish everybody a wonderful and happy Tuesday. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your afternoon and workday, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.
Take care, everyone.